It came! It finally came! The big one.
So last night I was pretty excited when this thing arrived, especially after spending $300 of my own money. Elgato could send this to me, but you know, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is and pay for it. Have some skin in the game, see if this is actually really worth the cost. Because a lot of people have been saying that you just do reviews because you get free stuff or you get paid to do it. Well, no, I actually really do value the community, so here's some proof. So, is this little guy worth 300 bucks? Let's take a look and see. First, I do want to mention I have done a review on the Facecam, the little brother to the Elgato Facecam Pro. So go check it out at the end of the video, it'll be on screen. But also, I'll leave links to different scenarios down in the description because, you know, some people this might not be right for you and some people this might not be right for you. Okay, so you can't be making noise while I record. But there you go, I'll leave links in the description. The unboxing experience was a really fun one for me. I like the packaging, and in the packaging comes the Facecam Pro Quick Start Guide, the user manual, which I never read, a USB-C to USB-C cable, which is really nice. You can also just use a USB-C to USB 3.0, that works too. But you know, you get a USB-C to USB-C for the Facecam Pro. You don't get that for the regular Facecam, you just get a USB Type-C to USB 3.0, which works just fine. And you can do a USB-C to USB-C for this regular Facecam, but you know, you gotta get an extra one for that if you wanna do that. For this guy, the C comes with it, and there's a lot of C's. Let's continue. And the stand with a 1/4" mount thread, and honestly, it's really amazing. So if you take a look on the Facecam Pro, it's got a lot of options you can do with tilting and even panning the camera, which is extremely useful compared to the previous one, which is, like if I screw it on all the way, it doesn't go on correctly. Because when it goes onto the monitor like this, it's looking the wrong direction. So I have to unscrew it a little bit, then tighten this ring if I can get there, which was very difficult. Then have slight movement when it's on the monitor. It moves sometimes, which is very inefficient. Now, the upgrade here for the Facecam Pro, super nice. I really love this upgrade. Something that is very small, but a huge difference to the quality of life for using the Facecam Pro. This thing's hefty, it's really heavy. Now, the Elgato Facecam Pro is more than twice the weight of the regular baby brother Facecam. And you can definitely feel the quality. This is kind of like a plastic, you can hear that and feel that it's plastic. With the Facecam Pro, that is plastic, but a lot of the build is metal. This is metal, so it's really solid. That's like a plastic shielding cover, but like the vents are metal. So this thing is really premium and pretty solid. How premium, you ask?
Premium as fuck!
Now, I mean, just take a look at this thing's build quality. It's solid and really good. I mean, the microphones are right here and you can see it. This is metal. Plastic, but metal in the back there. Great stand. This thing is built really well, and I love it. But, you know, that doesn't mean I'm gonna go around throwing it everywhere. So you can choose to turn autofocus on or off, and I'm gonna talk more about that later on in the video. But you can see on the right here, the other specs mention that you can get 2160 60 frames per second, 2160p 30 frames per second, 1080p 30 and 60 FPS, and you'll get 720p 30 and 60 FPS. That's really nice. A lot of options depending on what your workflow is. Now, Elgato Facecam Pro is the first 4K 60 frames per second webcam in the world. And I didn't even know that until it was released. I thought companies had done this before, but on further research, I found out that there is no 4K webcam that does 60 frames per second. They might do 30 or some off FPS. There's no 4K 60 on any webcam. That's a huge pro. So you probably know that streaming in 4K isn't really helpful. Don't stream in 2 or 4K. No one's gonna be able to watch it at their bandwidth. That's why everyone streams at either 1080p or 720p. But what really are the benefits of shooting in 4K on your Elgato Facecam Pro? How does it help? Well, take a look at this. Framing is extremely easy when it comes to the Elgato Facecam Pro. Just push a button and it reframes everything. and it just looks so good. Let's say I want to show off the amount of money I've spent on Elgato. You can do that, or show off the flag if you want, or my forehead, I guess. But you can reframe stuff and it looks really good. That's a really cool feature. Really simple. The way it works, go ahead and zoom in as much as you want. Go ahead and reposition the box, your framing. And then under the letter here, just go ahead and assign it to a letter by clicking and holding, and you'll see the save icon. That's it. It's that easy. Now this helps streamers a lot because you're gonna be able to have a lot of options when it comes to having your game screen on screen while you have your face on screen. So have it zoomed in so that there's no distractions or anything like that in your face cam. And then when you have an intermission screen, have it a wide view so that you can see more of your environment and people can compliment you about your setup or lack thereof. And this is great because you get no quality loss. You're streaming at 1080p and you have a 4K source in your project, which is a really high quality 1080p. So yeah, 4K is huge. Now another benefit is using autofocus with the Elgato Facecam Pro. Let's assume you move around a lot, or maybe you move close to the camera and then further away from the camera. You want to be able to stay in focus. Now this isn't for every situation. Some people, you don't want to use it because it just depends on your setup. If you have low or bad lighting, the focus hunting is going to happen more often. You know, when it kind of bzz, bzz type of look when you're trying to focus. This is what it looks like. So here in Camera Hub, when I turn on autofocus to be on automatic, you can see it hunts a little bit, which is not too bad. It's actually better than most webcams out there. Now, if I put my hand close to the camera and it focuses on my hand really well, actually, that looks pretty good. Now take it away, it hunts a little bit, but actually it gets focused really well. The microphone's kind of in the shot here and it's not focusing on that, it's focusing on my face. That's really good as well. Now, if I just, let me go ahead and zoom out here. Oh, that's even more. So it did focus hunt a little bit there as well. I didn't realize how far zoomed I was in. That's crazy, look at that. Oh, it does focus hunt again as well. Let's try another one. I don't know what it's gonna focus on because I didn't really preset that very well. There's my forehead and back to that. So it does focus every time you adjust it, but it's not too bad, especially considering it gets the focus right after the second, you know, focus hunting thing that it does. But you might be wondering, Murray, isn't Facecam Pro better? What's the point of this whole video? Well, you would be right, actually. Facecam Pro is better. Well, kind of. There are a few small scenarios where you shouldn't choose the 4K over the regular Facecam. That first one is budget. Is your budget going to allow it? Because if it's not, stick with Facecam. You're gonna be just fine. But if your budget allows it, choose Facecam Pro. It's a great option. One being, the resolution is really great. Two is the frames per second, which is 60 FPS. Really great. And three, which is probably one of my favorite, they've added a quality of life, which is the flippy stand. I really love what they've done with this. It's really nice compared to the Elgato Facecam, the baby brother, the predecessor. It just has a really bad stand. It turns when you don't want it to, and it doesn't even go on straight. At least mine doesn't. It doesn't go on straight. That's as far as it turns. So I have to unturn it, then tighten this bottom thing, which doesn't even turn half the time because it's stuck. So it's just a quality of life thing. I mean, Facecam is still really great, but Facecam Pro is even better. It's also got a reset button underneath, which is pretty clicky actually. It's pretty nice because you can reset all of your settings on Facecam Pro without doing it in the software and adjusting everything back to 0 or just resetting it in the software. It's got a nice little button there. That's pretty cool. I could go on and on about the differences between these two webcams, but one of the main highlights is the aperture. A lower aperture, the lower the number, it allows more light into the lens, which goes onto the sensor. Speaking of the sensor size is much bigger than before. This is what it looks like with just a regular old webcam sensor. This is what the Elgato Facecam sensors looks like. And this is the size of the Elgato Facecam Pro. It's equivalent to a fill frame, which is really nice. A bigger sensor allows more light into the image. Overall, it's a better low light capability camera. Now, the color can be pretty different as well as the resolutions for both of these webcams. So let's take a look at them side by side. Here's an example where both webcams are set to the very same settings, even if the Elgato Facecam looks bad. It's all the same lightings, all the same settings, so nothing is different except obviously the result. You can see that the Elgato Facecam is darker because it has a higher aperture, which means it doesn't allow as much light into the lens, and its dynamic range isn't as good as the Facecam Pro. This means that the bright parts of the image can be washed out and the dark parts of the image can be too dark. Having a higher dynamic range will reduce both of these so that they're more leveled out, so that the highs or the brights and the lows or the darks are not clipped. The Facecam Pro, on the other hand, is handling the lighting really well. It is a little more washed out, but you can always color grade this in post-production or just adjust the settings with the contrast and saturation right in Camera Hub. The Facecam does have a slight green tint to it, which you can always change that in the settings as well, just like the Facecam Pro if you don't like it. But a lot of people seem to like the Facecam colors way more than the Facecam Pro, but it's not really that big of a trade-off because you can always just fix that later. Now take the second example. I have still not changed the lighting. I wanted the best results for both cameras. So each setting on each camera is going to be different so that I can get the best out of both webcams. And this is the Elgato Facecam Pro and Elgato Facecam at their best. Keep in mind, these are ideal lighting conditions for these webcams, so take this with a grain of salt. I have two key lights lighting me, so that is going to make a difference. Although at the end of this video, I'll put on screen the Elgato Facecam and how it performs in low light. So keep watching and you can check that out. So you can see the real difference between these two Facecams, and it's quite noticeable. Now with the colors, I have spoken to people and most people do like the Elgato Facecam colors more than the Elgato Facecam Pro. But personally, I like the Facecam Pro a bit more because I just don't like green look in my image. And I can always just add a little bit more green or take out a little bit more blue in the Facecam Pro, or vice versa with the Facecam. Is the Facecam Pro worth the upgrade from the Elgato Facecam? In my opinion, yes. I'm glad I spent 300 bucks on this. It would be nice, maybe even if it was 250 bucks instead of 300. I would have preferred that, but I can't really complain. This is the best webcam in the world. I don't mind spending 300 bucks. Some webcams are the same price and you don't get as much features as this. But at the same time, would you go for this over a DSLR camera? How does it perform? And is it worth buying $300 webcam, the Elgato Facecam Pro? Or should you save up a bit more money and go for a DSLR with a Camlink setup? Let's take a look. So I have my R7 camera here, combined with the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 lens. It's a really nice setup, but that's $2,200 US combined. Now the Elgato Facecam Pro, that's 300 bucks. Let's see what the difference really is. Now, these price ranges are very big, and I know that, but let's take a look and see if you can really tell the difference. You probably can, it's pretty straightforward, but how much of a difference is it actually? I'm recording the Facecam Pro and the R7 both at 4K 60 FPS. So the resolutions are exactly the same. You're probably going to see that the R7, the more expensive DSLR camera, does have better bokeh or background blur, but you can also add that into the Elgato Facecam Pro in the Elgato Camera Hub. That's a mouthful. So I have tried to make these look as similar as possible with the settings, and they're looking pretty good comparatively. Obviously, I'm shooting in C-Log, which is basically a very flat profile, so I can color grade it later. So I might adjust the colors in the Facecam Pro a little bit in post, just to see if we can get it as close as possible to look like a DSLR camera. Future Murray here. Things didn't quite turn out as I expected. So I looked at the footage and I was like, this doesn't look as clear or crisp as I may have expected for 4K. And this could just be because I was recording in a lower bitrate in 4K, and I also don't feel like it was performing as well as I may have expected. So I changed my OBS settings to export or to record in 1080p rather than 4K. Because when you have a 4K footage scaled down to 1080p, that's a really high quality 1080p footage because you have so much more data. Now, if you take a look here, you'll see that on this top layer, This is the footage that is 1080p. If I just hide it, here's the other footage here, and you'll see that it's not as... this is way crisper than this, and this is 4K, whereas this is 1080p. But if you can see, I just had to scale it up. So if I scale it down, you'll see this is really what 1080p looks like, and then this is what 4K looks like. I'm essentially squeezing all of this extra screen space into 1080p right here, and that's what most people watch anyways. So you're gonna have a really high quality 1080p. I just wasn't entirely sure why 4K was shooting so grainy. It wasn't that grainy, but it was more grainy than I was hoping to, especially when comparing it to my R7 camera and the Facecam Pro. So I'm gonna do some more experimenting, and I'm gonna leave some notes in the comments down below of any other things that I discover. So future Murray here, I decided to re-record from OBS in 4K with the Facecam Pro, and I have a different result than what I had the first time, which it could have been my fault. Like I very well could have made a mistake in the export settings in OBS when recording the Facecam Pro the first time. So let me show you what I mean here. Let's first show what the original 4K footage looked like, and it was, you know, a little blurry. I don't remember what settings I recorded at. With my updated settings in OBS Studio, I was recording at 10,000 bitrate, exporting at 4K 60 FPS. So that's what I recorded here if I show you this new footage, and it looks so much cleaner. And if you take a look at both of these 4K files side by side, scaled at 200%, you'll see the difference is quite significant. Now, I don't know what I did the first time recording the 4K 60 from the Facecam Pro in OBS, but now that I redid it and did it a second time, double checked my settings, it looks better than before. So actually, I'm going to show you a new recording of my R7 versus the Facecam Pro, and let's see if you can actually tell the difference. So here we go. Let's hope this is the last test I do, because this video has taken a long time to record and it's taking a lot of work to edit. So please leave a like, that'd be appreciated. Me and Adam measure our self-worth by how many likes this video gets. So this is probably going to be a little harder to tell the difference. You obviously can tell the difference, it is still obvious, but it's harder than the previous test that I did. The image is a lot sharper, which is nice. The only light that's on, except for my, that's the wrong hand, except for my monitors, is this main key light here, which is the Amaran 100X. It's a really great light, and I can control it with my phone as well as my camera. That's pretty cool. Hopefully you can see the difference, but it's actually really great. So the camera I'm recording is doing 4K 60, as well as the Facecam Pro, which is 4K 60. Now the R7 with the Sigma 18-35 is a really expensive setup. It's over $2,000 as opposed to a $300 webcam. There are going to be some differences. The bokeh is naturally going to be nicer in the R7. I haven't turned on the bokeh with the Facecam Pro because you have to use the Camera Hub virtual camera to be able to get that blur background in your stream software of choice, which I'm using OBS Studio. Now when I do that, I only get a smaller file size, and I think it's only a 1080p signal from Camera Hub. You can't get, at least as of right now, I haven't been able to figure it out if you can do it. I haven't been able to get a 4K 60 signal to my stream software using the Camera Hub virtual camera, because that's the only way you can get the blurred background with the effects tab in Camera Hub. So I'm literally just using the signal right from the camera, going straight into OBS, bypassing Camera Hub's virtual camera, because now I can get 4K 60. And it looks really sharp, looks great. I'm really happy with the result. What does it look like with all the lights on? Let's take a look and see. So here we go. This is what it looks like with all the lights on. It's a pretty RGB setup, and it's looking pretty good, you know? So pretty sharp. It does well with the brights in the image, which looks really nice, as well as the darks. I have reduced the contrast a little bit than what I would normally do, even though it was the same contrast with all the lights off except the main key light. The contrast is set to 42%, saturation is 49%. If I reduce the contrast, you can see just how much like washed out it gets, but that could help in editing if you want to add a color grade later. Let's take it back up. I don't remember what it was at. This is at 34%. I kind of like it. I don't like my darks too crushed out like this. I mean, that's way too much. It makes the image look cheap. So let's go back to, let's do 35%. What's that, 38? 34%. I feel like 34, at least for me in my situation, is looking pretty good. Now, if I turn the main key light off It's my main Amran 100X. I added a fill light there, which adds a little bit of fill to my face. I have a hair light, which is kind of outlining my hair here. Looks pretty good in low light situations. Let's see what happens when I turn my hair light off. Really nice being able to control everything right from my phone. Actually, that's a big difference. So having a hair light that's on the ceiling fan right now, just pointing to my head, if I turn it on, it's a really good difference. Now, obviously, lighting is going to be a big part on how your image or your video turns out. So having a Elgato Facecam with a full frame equivalent size of its frame is really great. Lets in a lot more light, especially with a lower aperture. It does really well. But you might say, Murray, this is a really bad example because you're doing a $2,000 camera versus a $300 webcam. Let's level the playing field a little bit. Okay, so I changed it up a little bit. I've got the Canon M50 Mark II and I've got the Elgato Facecam Pro. They both look really good. However, the Canon M50 Mark II is $800 as opposed to $2,200, you know, including the lens. It comes with 18 to 35, I think it is, if I remember correctly, and it's shooting at 4K 30 FPS. That's the highest FPS that this camera can shoot at, as opposed to the Elgato Facecam at 4K 30. You might notice that the bokeh can be pretty good on the Canon M50, but obviously, again, you can edit that and put that in with Camera Hub. This slide is very distracting, but it's working nonetheless. It's getting some pretty cool shots, as you can tell. Now you can see the Canon M50 is a bit further back than the Elgato Facecam Pro, and it's also higher. I had to do that just to get a very similar, or, you know, it's not a very wide lens, because it's shooting in 4K cropped. It's a 4K crop sensor. If I'm shooting in 1080p, I'll get a full wide view, but I lose quality at the same time. So you can see that the Canon M50 Mark II with the lens is about $850, and the Facecam Pro is $300. Actually, that's a really great setup. So you can see there is a difference with a DSLR camera as opposed to a Facecam or a webcam, but the Elgato Facecam Pro is the best webcam out there right now, and it's almost DSLR type of, quality. So it's just a really great camera all around. Now, obviously there are some things you can do with a Canon M50 or something similar like a DSLR as opposed to a $300 webcam like the Elgato Facecam Pro. There are going to be some things that you won't be able to do, like you can go out and take photography, and it's battery powered, so you can take it anywhere you want and do all kinds of vlogging. But then again, you have to have a bit of a setup if you want to do a portable webcam solution with the Canon M50 and the Camlink Pro, which is right here. You can use that with your Canon M50 or equivalent, whatever you use for a DSLR, and use this to put it in your stream. It's going to be a bit more of a setup and not as portable as what a Facecam Pro would be. So you got to keep that in mind. So is the Elgato Facecam Pro worth the purchase, or is it worth the cost? For $300? Yes and no. Let me explain. So it could depend on your situation. For example, if you want a DSLR quality, this is about $850 for the Canon M50 Mark II, along with the Camlink 4K. This is basically this guy at twice the cost? No, more than twice the cost, almost 3 times the cost, but really great quality. This is a really cheap option considering the other options you have for DSLR connections to the Camlink 4K. It's really great. I've used it on my stream all the time. Now, the issue with this is it's bulky and you got to get stands and cables and all kinds of stuff. So if you want something similar, the Elgato Facecam Pro is going to be the next best thing, because this is the best webcam in the world right now at 4K 60 FPS and the amazing quality full frame sensor equivalent. There's nothing like it. Just look how big this thing is in my hand. It depends on your situation. Now, if you already have a Facecam, just the regular baby brother, and you're considering upgrading to this, first thing you want to consider is, does your budget allow it? And also, are you really going to use the extra features that this thing does? Most things are upgraded. The color is slightly different. Obviously, you can change that in editing. So if that doesn't bother you, take a look at the quality. 4K, yes, you can punch in, have those presets in Camera Hub, which is really nice, as well as it's just this 4K Pro, what am I saying? 4Ks, Camlinks, Facecams, webcams, just all the names. So the Elgato Facecam Pro, it's a little sharper in the image than the regular Facecam. That's because of the 4K quality. You can add sharpening filters to this in Camera Hub, whereas this you cannot. So you know, take that with a grain of salt. You don't need to add sharpening to this guy. It's not needed. This thing, maybe I added 2 sharpening, which is the default in Camera Hub for the Facecam, the small guy. So you have that. As far as price goes, this is $169 as opposed to $300. You're gonna have to decide if that's worth it for you or not. Are you gonna use that extra resolution on your stream, your Zoom calls? This is overkill for your Zoom calls. I wouldn't spend $300 if it's just for your communication on work like Zoom, Skype, Team, whatever you use. The Facecam is just gonna do just fine for your, you know, business calls. As far as content creation, this is really nice because you get to, you know, record in 4K, have a wide screen, and punch into different resolutions when editing this for TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube videos, shorts, all that kind of stuff. So it does add flexibility when it comes to creating content on YouTube. And this is all in one solution, and it's really nice because you can use it in a portable solution. It just comes with a cable, with all these cables that I have. I promise I have good cable management. This is actually a really thick cable too, but this is all you need. Really portable solution, and that's nice. So depending on how you answer those questions, the answer is going to vary for many different people. Now, if you do want to see the full review on the Elgato Facecam, the baby brother to the Facecam Pro, check it out right here. And also, if you want to see all the info and links and different scenarios that you might have for different situations, the links are down in the description. Feel free to check that out. There's a lot of helpful resources there as well. I'll see you next time, but until then, make something great.